Hello, Jordan Sheridan live. Status Coup, February 27th in the United Corporations of America. Delighted to be joined by intrepid reporter Louis DeAngelis, home from East Palestine. And we're already scheduling your trip back. So that is exciting. I tweeted earlier that unfortunately, the mainstream media is already right on cue to abandon this critical story, but we're going to stay on it for now remotely because we can't be there indefinitely, but definitely send you back. And fortunately, we have more news to break today, thanks to Lewis and all of our efforts. It's really been a kind of a group effort to talk to as many residents as possible, stay on the news, and you'd be surprised how much you could find if you just make an effort to talk to the residents of these communities, in this case, the victims. And unfortunately, Lewis, I don't know if you've had the news on much today. I don't really see much on CNN, MSNBC, Fox, shocker. It seems that similar to what we saw with the Flint water crisis, they kind of cover it quite a bit for about a week to 2 weeks, and then it changes to updates, and then it moves on to barely any coverage. But before we get to everything going on, can you just describe, in your best description, what's actually going on there versus kind of the media narrative? And shall I say, please smash the like button. We're almost at 134,000 subscribers, which is incredible. We were stuck on this damn platform for a long time at 128,000, but welcome to all new subscribers. Thank you for subscribing. Welcome to all new paying members. We'll get to that in a little bit. We gained 91 paid members over the last week. We want to keep going, because it's going to take more revenue to keep sending Lewis and a cameraman back. But tell us, what separate fact from fiction.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. So thanks for having me on again here. Happy to be back home, but ready to get back out there as soon as possible, just because this story deserves somebody out there continuing to ask the tough questions. Some of the unfortunate realities that I found out while I was there is that, I mean, the reports you hear about folks being sick, that is all very, very much true. You've got a town that has, widespread rashes on folks from water, air, chemical exposure. We talked to experts who kind of helped back this up. We've got children getting bloody noses all night long, basically vomiting. You've got folks with headaches all day long. Folks ending up in the hospital needing nebulizer treatments, mothers and kids in some cases, both of them having to go in there. And these are folks that are otherwise healthy individuals that have not needed hospital visits, here and there, have not had health complications in the past. These are otherwise healthy folks that train derails in their backyard, shit gets set on fire and lit off, and now these people are sick. Folks are trying to, folks, including the state of Ohio, unfortunately, are trying to gaslight some of these folks into believing that, oh no, these symptoms aren't from this at all. You're just feeling sick, or it's in your head. We uncovered while I was on the ground there, the clinic, in quotes, that was set up by the state of Ohio to provide aid for residents. That's where, when I interviewed the governor, that's where he said folks should go if they're not feeling well. That clinic, we went ourselves, me and John Farina, who was there with me, and discovered that clinic did offer a few services, but those services were all talking with a counselor, getting help with your mental health from this, things like that. More notably, at this clinic, what is not being offered was, diagnosing you with any sort of actual medical condition, providing you with any treatment whatsoever, no prescription drugs, no nothing like that. There were no testing of any kind. You couldn't get your blood tested. You couldn't get your urine tested to see what your body had been exposed to. The clinic was essentially set up to just provide referrals. So That means if you show up and you're not feeling well, oh, well, here's a referral. Go see your doctor. Go to the emergency room. Hopefully you have good health insurance to go get some of this stuff covered. The clinic was an absolute joke. The fact that anyone is pointing people to go there is a shame, and it's an absolute waste of these folks' time who are already getting the runaround on 9 million other things that they need to worry about with all this going on. And to make matters even worse, we had reports of at least a handful of residents who were saying, I've got these rashes. I've never had rashes before. And the folks at that clinic had the gall to tell these people that, oh, your rashes, I know you've never had them before, but it's probably from the stress. Can you imagine? Basically, I'm not exaggerating these numbers when I say almost half of the folks that I talked to had some sort of rash. Half of a town just gets a rash all at the same time, and they're all due to stress. I don't know.
And I spoke with a toxicologist who told me in most cases those are chemical burns,
yes,
not rashes. We got a lot to get to. We are going to debut really incredible drone footage that a source gave to Lewis. We're going to get to that in just a few minutes, but we have some other news items first that we want to speak about. But before that, Lewis, it's tough times for everybody, so I thought we'd start with a little levity. For any of you new-time fathers out there, my daughter is time is a blur right now. My daughter is 15 weeks old, I believe, and we were doing good for a bit. Started to sleep for about 5 hours, which was terrific. But now we're at the regression, what they call the 3 or 4 month regression. So she's back to 2 hours, waking up every 2 hours. So I am on, I think I've had 3 cups of coffee today, but everything's a blur. When Lewis calls me, I usually tell him, slow down, because I cannot computate what you're saying. But I thought, obviously, there's serious things to discuss, but I really wanted to show this image because I thought that this would at least give people some humor and levity in these trying times. So that is my wonderful daughter, Lily, providing me a little present. This was, I don't know, yesterday or the day before, who knows. But that was her spitting up all over Daddy's glasses, forehead, and all that. So wonderful present from my daughter, and thought that might be something people appreciate. Now, on to more serious matters. We're going to have a lot more on this tomorrow, where we're going to actually interview the resident who experienced this. But part of the importance of being on the ground, which Lewis was, and we are hoping to send him back in a week or 2 weeks, is building relationships with residents so that when there's stuff going on, we're the first ones they come to. So Lewis got a tip earlier today that there was essentially, I guess, like an invite-only meeting where politicians, including Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown, the mayor of East Palestine, some business owners got together today. And from what we could tell, only invited, what was it, one resident?
Yeah, I mean, there might have been a handful of residents. Obviously, some of the business owners are residents, but there were basically a bunch of business owners and politicians who were more concerned with getting things open and back to normal, and really just one or two people in the room who are really concerned about the lack of testing going on and all sorts of other stuff in the room.
So
if you want to, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, let's set the scene. So it was Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown, the mayor, a couple local business people, one resident that we know that is with River Valley Organizing and has been doing a lot in terms of, she helped set up a community meeting last week. She helped, I think she was involved with the Aaron Brockovich town hall, some other things. And she was there. And the way she described it to you was essentially the main focus was what?
So basically, she sent me a text this afternoon, and she said, I had a joke meeting with the senator today. People are blind. So I texted her back, and she gave me a call to fill me in on what was going on. And essentially, as we just set the scene there, a room full of business owners, Sherrod Brown, several other folks in the room who are the mayor, the fire chief. And the main concern that seemed to be going on in the room was that folks in the media are painting this to be a grim picture, and that it is scaring people from getting back to normal in East Palestine, that it is affecting local business, and that we need to do basically everything we can to get things back to normal, get folks coming back into town, doing business in town. There was also a comment that was passed along, and again, we're going to have more on this with an interview with this resident tomorrow, where she said that someone in the room made a comment of saying, where are they finding these people to interview? And when she said that, I interrupted her, and I was like, it's not hard. You walk around anywhere in downtown and people are pissed off. People want to talk about this because they feel like they're getting the short end of the stick, because they are. No one's coming to come help these folks. So the people in this room, again, more concerned about getting things back to normal than making sure the people who are struggling right now, people who are afraid for their health and well-being, people who are frankly worried about their financial standpoint because their homes are now essentially worthless in town, all sorts of things. But instead it's, let's get things back to normal. Let's get money flowing in and out of town before we make sure the concerns of the people are met. And at one point, Jamie, our source who's going to be on tomorrow, she made a point to ask about dioxin testing and why that wasn't being done. And one of the officials in the room essentially said that dioxin testing isn't being done because the EPA doesn't have a baseline of where dioxin was before this event. To me, it doesn't seem like you don't have to prevent doing dioxin testing now just because you didn't do it before. If you do dioxin testing today and there are unsafe levels, who the hell cares what the dioxin levels were a week before the derailment? That still is a major concern that you need to get people out of there. So that's another major red flag in all of this. We talked about it a little bit, especially in the second half of the week, as we learn more about the importance of dioxins in this whole story. But the testing isn't being done. And one other big point from this, at one point, Senator Brown made a comment that if folks are concerned about needing testing down in their homes, or whether it be the water or the air, that these folks should go ahead and pay for their own independent testing and save the receipts, because they'll be reimbursed later at a later date. Jamie told me that she made a point to then ask Senator Brown, well, unfortunately, sir, a lot of folks in this town can't afford to have this sort of this sort of testing to be done. In a lot of cases, these tests can be hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars in some cases. What are these
thousands of dollars.
Yeah. So, a lot of folks in this town can't afford thousands of dollars in testing to hopefully be reimbursed at a later date. This is an exact number, but the median household income in East Palestine is around $40,000 a year. An individual is significantly less than that. And again, that's the median of, that means, about half of folks in town are making less, about half of households in town are making less than that. That is not feasible for these folks to spend thousands of dollars to have their own independent testing done. Senator Brown's answer to that was essentially, oh, well, this is our first time dealing with all of this, blah, 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 boilerplate, non-answer. So
let me set the scene here. Obviously, Lewis was on the ground, so he will vouch for what I'm about to say. But we're now 3 weeks after this, and this is not like conjecture. This is not speculation. This is interviews Lewis has done, interviews I've done. There's 3 or 4 Facebook pages of people posting symptoms, unless you think they're all making it up, which if you do, go touch grass. You have the mayor, Senator Sherrod Brown, who's not the worst of all the Democrats, but he's not exactly spectacular either. The mayor, Sherrod Brown, I don't know. We'll confirm, but I don't know if an EPA official was there. Business types in this local community, and a handful of residents, invite only. Which I don't think anything should be invite only. Everything should be public for all the residents right now, because they have been kept in the dark on what were the chemicals on that train. They just found out like 2 weeks later that they're not testing for dioxin. Dioxin is formed through the combustion of vinyl chloride. According to Dr. Stephen Lester, who spoke at one of the community meetings Lewis covered, there's 75 different types of dioxins, and one of them is, quote, the most toxic chemical ever tested in the United States.
Mhm.
So it's not like there's only concern on one dioxin. There's a whole lot of forms of dioxin that cause cancer, reproductive issues, vaginal bleeding. I mean, some horrible things.
Yeah.
So the top concern, and we'll get it straight from the resident's mouth tomorrow, the top concern at this meeting was that the media is making this look really bad, which I'd like to know what media they're talking about, because if you ask me, the national media has been understating what's going on. If you watch CNN and MSNBC, they're like, yeah, residents have some symptoms. Some symptoms. We had residents on yesterday. People are talking about that cars are swerving because people are feeling like loosey-goosey and drunk. We have video that we're going to play in a bit of people digging soil by the creek and literally feeling sicker the more exposure they had out near the creek. You have people having vomiting, diarrhea, nosebleeds, dizziness, headaches, kids talking about that they feel like their legs are burning in the shower. And the top concern at this, and I don't want to minimize it because people need to eat and business owners.
Right.
We're not talking about Goldman Sachs. These are
small town business. Yeah.
Small business. So I'm not minimizing the concern about business. And this is already a decimated area. I mean, it's the industrial Midwest. Part of why I think Trump won is because areas like this have been screwed over the last 40 years. Their jobs have been sent to Mexico and China, et cetera, et cetera. But in my view, you could walk and chew gum, and the top concern is preventing a cancer alley, in my opinion. The top concern is the children who, and adults, but particularly children whose systems are not completely developed in the first place and are inhaling toxic shit. The top concern at these meetings shouldn't be about, hey, let's get back to normal and get people back to normal. There's people who are describing to you, Lewis, and you were in people's homes. We've shown the videos that once you turn the fan off, it smells like a gas station, even with the fan on. I mean, I can go on, but it's just crazy to me. And this shows the sickness. That's why I have the flag behind me, because we live in the United Corporations of America. This shows the sickness that this is what they're talking about. And I love how Sherrod Brown, who again isn't the worst of the politicians, loosely for unions and stuff, but he's saying, yeah, well, if residents are concerned, just fork over a couple grand for independent testing. And
we'll get you back later, maybe.
I mean, am I in the twilight zone? We're going to show the drone footage, but we're also going to show footage of a backyard right next to the train tracks that is just underwater with water that's boiling. We're going to show footage of people at the creek, new footage that chemicals are coming up and you hear them.
And this spot on the creek, too, is miles from East Palestine. I will say, I know where they took these videos. One thing I want to say on the business owners too, because again, to your point, these are small business owners who are absolutely probably struggling as a result of this. But rather than, hey, let's potentially be lying to everybody, getting all these folks back into town, why don't we, right now FEMA is now doing the cleanup and Norfolk Southern needs to reimburse FEMA for all of this. FEMA, for the time being, can be making up the difference in what these small businesses are owning and have Norfolk Southern pay up for it and reimburse FEMA for that, or have Norfolk Southern be paying some of these businesses directly if their business is actually at fault. Do something similar to what we were doing during COVID with all of this sort of thing. So, and
Lewis, I just want to get it on the record, so we can have this on the record. Who was telling you to wear a respirator the whole time? You
were telling me the whole time. Yes,
Thank you.
Will say
thank you, because I've gotten a lot of concerning DMs. Why is Lewis not wearing a respirator? I said, I'm not his mommy and I'm not his daddy, but I paid for a respirator, and I can't make him wear it.
And I'll say too, like, so on certain instances, especially at night when the smell was much worse and all this sort of thing, we were wearing the respirators. There were a couple instances where in hindsight, I should have put it on afterwards, but Jordan was texting me and calling me very much saying, make sure you're wearing it, make sure you're wearing it. When I was feeling okay to be not wearing it, I wasn't wearing it. But when I wasn't feeling that, I was wearing a respirator. Some of you might think that that's dumb, and that's totally fine. I was willing to personally make my own personal decisions on some of this stuff. I wore it predominantly off camera. It's a little, also part of it is difficult. And again, I personally, could I have done it with it on camera and when Jordan have been totally fine with that? Yes. I made the choice not to. So yeah,
we're pro-choice here. No, but I gotta tell you what's a lot, and we are gonna play the drone footage, but we thought it was important to start with this because it just shows you, and this happened in Flint. I've covered Flint for many years, and literally the mayor of Flint during the crisis, real estate developers, the governor of Michigan, some of the Chamber of Commerce were all in her ear. She told me on the record, telling her declare the water better so that we could, because we want to gentrify and we can't get businesses to come to Flint, and it's not good for business if you have a water crisis. So declare it better. That's sociopathic. Frankly, that's psychopathic to literally use these people. I don't care what they are. I don't care if they voted for Trump, if they voted for Biden, that doesn't matter. To basically allow people to be sacrificial lambs when, frankly, let's keep it real, Lewis. The reason they had people come back so quickly is because the train could not move if the town was evacuated. Legally, a train cannot go through if the town is evacuated.
Yeah.
So it's just time and time again. We don't need to get into COVID. Everybody feels how they feel. But I think COVID was declared over before it was actually over, so we can get business moving again. And at a certain point, you have to listen to the residents. The EPA could say whatever it wants. The EPA could say, well, our testing's showing the air is fine and the water is fine. Well, then why are people getting headaches, dizzy, vomiting, diarrhea, nosebleeds?
Right.
And those are the acute situations. What do you think those things turn into? I know what they turn into: cancer, autoimmune problems, kidney problems, liver problems. And I just want to show this. This is from Texas A&M. I sent you this, Colin. Ohio train derailment. Researchers raise health concerns due to several toxic chemicals in East Palestine. An analysis of EPA data by Texas A&M researchers has found 9 air pollutants at levels higher than normal in East Palestine. 3 weeks after the Norfolk Southern train derailment in East Palestine, an independent study indicates that the continued presence of toxic chemicals in the air could lead to health concerns. Texas A&M Superfund Research Center has found that 9 of the 50 chemicals reported by the EPA air toxic data are higher than normal levels. If these levels continue, they may be of health concern. Oh my God. Specifically, the center is concerned about the presence of acrolein, according to the National Center for Biotechnology. Acrolein, a colorless or yellow liquid with a disagreeable odor. Remember, Lewis interviewed Brandy and Wayne, who said there was a horrendous odor coming from the creek. It is used to make other chemicals, plastics, and as a herbicide. Exposure to acrolein can lead to irritation of the eyes and skin with effects of heart and lung function. It's also, quote, toxic to aquatic life. Ding, ding, ding.
Right. Explains all the dead fish in Leslie Run, right out in front of Brandy and Wayne's house, and several other places that we saw before our arrival and during our trip as well. Yeah.
While we're at it, let's play part of that interview now, Colin. Well, you could set it up. Who Lewis and Wayne you interviewed?
Yeah, Brandy and Wayne. So these two, Brandy lives in this house on the property here. Wayne lives close by as well. They, right after the initial derailment, and then even more so after the controlled burn, the creek in front of their house, they live right, they're technically in East Palestine, but it's basically on the road between East Palestine and Negley. Negley is downstream of East Palestine. When the big fire, controlled burn in air quotes set off, very quickly they started noticing the odor coming from the stream. You could see chemicals in the water. They described it as like a unnatural bright blue. And they could smell this for days. And even up until, when was it, Thursday this past week, we went to their house and there were still dead fish in that creek. There are still chemicals that you can disturb in the bottom of the creek and see when you flip over a rock or rub a stick on the bottom of it. And they're concerned rightfully over all sorts of things, including they're on well water. They're concerned about that. Their neighbors, just one plot of land down, they're in agriculture. They're concerned about their plants, their livestock, all sorts of things like that. So before we play this, let's just make a point. I'm not an Ohio expert, but I don't know. Where does Kasich live, the former governor? Westerville? Was that it? Sure. Yeah.
if this happened in a nice part of Ohio, or I don't know, think of New York, LA, whatever. If this happened in a nice place that didn't have a $40,000 average wage, and you had, some upper middle class white,
That's household income too, not average wage. Household.
these people would still be evacuated.
Mm-hmm.
It is absolutely insane, reckless that any of these people are still in town, because you do not know. I truly don't think we know every chemical that was on that train. I would not put it past that we find out later that Norfolk Southern hid some of it. I don't know what the hell the EPA is even testing with, because some of the machines they're using, Lewis is digging on this, seem to be good in detecting high levels of certain things, but might miss low levels that can still be concerning.
And frankly, the machines also don't, it's easy to make your air and water quality look good when you are testing for the wrong things. The EPA and the contractors hired by the railroad are knowingly testing for things that they're knowingly not testing for things that they know should be present. If you're not testing for what you actually need to look for, you're obviously going to come back with good results. Yeah.
So let's play part of this clip. And by the way, we got 850 people watching, only 280 likes. Look at that handsome face. Smash that like button for Lewis. He's been working nonstop. Please smash that like button. It helps get this out to more people. Super chats are appreciated. We'll read them at the end. Let's play some of this.
So the train derailed on Friday, February 3rd, and then February 5th, which was Sunday, we started noticing dead fish in the stream. So I, took pictures and posted to Facebook because other people needed to know that. There's a lot of people in this area that have livestock that use the creek water to, water horses or cows, whatever. So, it was very important that everyone became aware not to use the water. But yeah, we continued to see dead fish. Just a couple of days ago, there was a whole pile of them, like a school almost. I think with some of the rain yesterday, I know we didn't get a lot of rain, but I think some of that kind of washed downstream.
Have either of you experienced anything since this all has kind of begun?
I haven't really noticed anything. I've kind of woke up with a couple bloody noses. That's kind of normal for me, when the weather starts to get nice, and we've had some really unusually warm weather for Ohio. So I don't want to say that it's not from the train, but I can't say that it is. I will say Monday when they did the controlled burn, I did wake up about 2 o'clock, and I could taste it. It was almost hard to describe it, like a sweet metallic taste almost.
Mm-hmm. And you, to be clear, they did not tell you that you needed to evacuate for that?
No, we are roughly 3 miles outside of the ground zero.
And you were inside of your home and you could taste it in the middle of
I woke up around 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
The reason she could taste it mostly,
the crick.
This crick was just putting off a horrendous odor.
And probably,
it was blue for a while. It was blue up to a week. A real blue cast to it.
Probably for about a week after, you could really smell it. Mm-hmm. More so at night, I think, when the winds shifted and it was blowing more towards the house. But yeah, we could really, really smell anytime you got close to the creek or went over the bridge.
Well, that would explain it. And what's remarkable, Lewis, why is it that Texas A&M, because, there's going to be universities that do independent testing. I was told today Purdue University sends some people in.
Some of their stuff on Twitter,
Why are we hearing from Texas A&M that there's concerning levels that might have long-term? I would argue with that. Obviously, they're going to have long-term symptoms.
Right.
But the EPA is telling everybody everything's fine. We saw the photo up from the EPA chief, the Ohio governor, some other people standing around a sink, drinking water. We all remember Obama drinking water in Flint. Something's not literally something doesn't smell right. And I think the residents, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's easy because I see a lot of people who mean well saying, you got to get out of there, leave. Right. And that's my instinct, leave. But where are they supposed to go? These are people who are of low income. A lot of their family lives in the area. They don't have the means to just continue paying their mortgage and go. I mean, someone we've been interviewing is paying for a hotel because their 9-year-old son is asthmatic and going back to their house, it still smells like gas. So it's a very, I feel like we're kind of in the twilight zone. The media was vague, said, yeah, some people are experiencing symptoms. When you talk to residents, it's much worse than that. We don't need to dramatize it because we're hearing straight from their mouths.
And yeah, I mean, it's the impossible situation that I found time and time again and in a lot of cases, it's like single mom, single dad in this position. They've got 3 or 4 kids. Their kids are feeling sick. Maybe they're lucky and they own the house that they're in. But they can't sell that house right now. Would you buy a house in East Palestine? I know I wouldn't be buying a house in East Palestine. So they have a job in East Palestine. Their kids live in East Palestine. They don't have somewhere else to go. Their option is stay and trust the government, who, in this case, I mean, if all your family's getting sick and you're there, what are you going to do? So your option is to
Did Lewis freeze for a second?
Oh, can you hear me again?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, cut out.
You froze for like 20 seconds.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, what are these folks to do? I don't know exactly where I cut out, but it's an absolutely impossible position that these folks are being put in. Folks that, you know, are struggling now to get money from the assistance center. You know, they're not necessarily reimbursing for hotels anymore at this point because the message from the EPA and others is it's safe to come back now. So why are we paying for your hotel anymore? So again, these folks do not have options. So I see a lot of people saying the same thing. Just do whatever you can to leave. Unfortunately, a lot of these folks don't have the resources to leave, and a lot of their family lives right in that town. Some people we spoke with, I'm going to blank on the exact number, but it's like 40 or 50 members of their family live within 3 or 4 miles of the derailment. Right. Where are those? It's not like they can all go move in with their, you know, cousin and wherever. It's not an option.
Right. So we got a lot more to show you, but without further ado, we want to show exclusive drone footage. I don't believe this has been out yet. Some of it is a little grainy, not the best quality, but a lot of it is really good quality. I think this was from somebody roughly in town.
Yeah, this is a resident who lives in East Palestine, kind of on the edge of the actual village. We talked a ton off the record and on the you know, we're working on doing something on the record here shortly. But he passed along this drone footage. It has not been given to any other media outlet. And I think it does a really good job of showing in the very beginning, the first 45 seconds or so are of the initial derailment, like right after the initial derailment. Some of it will be at night and then a little bit the next morning. And then later on, about after the 45-second mark of that video, you're going to see the actual controlled burn and just how far out the actual cloud of debris, of chemicals that are launched into the air actually goes. Again, for this, only people within 1 mile had to evacuate. This source and his family were at about the, I believe, 2-ish mile zone, and they stayed for a good part of it before ultimately, getting out of there based on what you're about to see.
And I also think we'll talk about this more after. It's about, I think, 5 or 6 minutes. But I also think what you will come away with, besides how alarming this is, obviously we're talking about the people of East Palestine because that's the people most directly impacted. But if you look at this smoke and this inferno, I don't care what the EPA says. I certainly don't care what Norfolk Southern says. This is not limited to a mile. This is not limited to 10 miles. This is likely going to be a multi-state victim area. When I say victims, we're talking from major symptoms like cancer to, minor things, maybe like asthma, respiratory issues. What you're going to see, I mean, just the wind pattern, it's just, there's no real way to know how far this spread. We could only anecdotally say, I've gotten messages from people in West Virginia, in Virginia, in Pennsylvania. We've seen things on Twitter, everybody all at the same time in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, even Vermont, getting soot on their car. And then know-it-alls on Twitter say that's pollen. Well, everybody all on the same weekend are getting pollen all over
I
their
can tell
car.
you there's no pollen in Vermont in February. I lived in Vermont for 4 years, so.
Yeah. So what you're going to see, I think you'll all come away with, I'm not trying to alarm anyone that lives in these areas, but you should know that it's very likely that the wind carried this to your neck of the woods as well. Colin, let's show this exclusive drone footage. Wow.
I mean, at the point where they're like towards the end of showing the massive cloud that was formed after the controlled burn, again, when you watch that, I mean, I don't need to tell you that that's not a controlled burn. The scary thing to me is after learning everything that we learned, especially in the second half of the week, from Mr. Lester, who is the kind of expert in the health and some of the chemistry behind all of this, as well as other folks we were talking to, is dioxins, which we've talked a little bit about today, and in general in some of the videos. Dioxins which aren't being tested for in East Palestine or any town that those clouds were going over. Dioxin is heavier than air. So what happened when that controlled burn went off is the dioxin was carried up in that giant cloud in what's called like a thermal generated by all of the heat there. So it's lifted up and spread out in those massive clouds. And then, like I mentioned, dioxins will then settle because it's heavier than air down onto the ground. When it settles back down onto the ground, it will stay in your grass. It will land in streams. It will land wherever it may be. It can land in your home, through the windows. These are really, really tiny particles. And then it leads to all sorts of other things. So let's use the example of it. It lands in your yard and you've got a garden. This is an exact example that was used and explained by these experts. Let's say you plant Brussels sprouts in your garden. If the Brussels sprouts are planted on soil that has dioxins that have settled from this cloud into it, the dioxins will be absorbed into the Brussels sprouts and then become inside of it. And then when somebody were to eat a Brussels sprout, the dioxins get into your body or into the body of, let's say in the case of grass.
We lost young Lewis for probably another 20, 30 seconds. Let's see if he comes back. Hold on.
There we go. Can you hear me again?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So the dioxins will, get into you or an animal or whatever may consume whatever it's landed on. And your body and an animal's body cannot process this. It gets into your body, essentially. There's a more complicated way of describing this, but I'll save that for the experts. And it leads to all of the things we talked about earlier. It can lead to longer term cancers. It can lead to issues if you're a woman wanting to have a child. It can lead to all sorts of very serious health complications down the line. And it's actually something that can be passed genetically onto offspring as well. And again, dioxins are not being tested for. That cloud right there spreads out who knows how many miles that cloud spreads out for. The fact that that's not being tested for is absolutely criminal in my mind.
So a couple things, and I'm going to toot our horn.
Mm-hmm.
So won't get into who, but obviously a source sent us this footage. I don't want to speak for the source, but based on my experience in other places, Standing Rock, Flint, I can tell you that source could have sent this footage to just about anyone. There's a good chance if we want to, we'll be able to license this to other outlets who want to use it and get paid. He gave it to Status Coup, specifically Lewis, because there's a difference between our reporting and the rest of the mainstream media, meaning we're actually on the ground showing the full truth, not watering it down, not regurgitating whatever bullshit the EPA is saying, not regurgitating whatever bullshit Ohio Governor Mike DeWine was saying, speaking with residents, relaying their symptoms, their full symptoms, not just kind of giving vague, oh, some people aren't feeling well. So why I bring all this up is the reason we were able to bring that to you is because Lewis was on the ground hauling ass and doing great job. And you made that possible. All specifically the paying members who fund our reporting. We didn't want to do a big thing at the beginning, but I'll do it now. Colin, if you have it, we grew 91 paid members while we were in East Palestine. That is people signing up to our website at statuscoup.com/join. People signing up on YouTube, because you could sign up as a member on YouTube as well. People signing up on Patreon. And obviously, the main focus is East Palestine. But the truth is, this reporting is because we were on the ground. And being on the ground and going back, key phrase, going back. I've been to Flint almost 20 times. I don't say that for bragging rights. I say that because to truly tell a story, to truly investigate what's really going on, to build sources, to stay up on what is going on, you got to not only build sources, but keep those sources, and you got to keep going back. And it's expensive. Colin, I don't know if you have it, but just in a week, that's actually pretty outdated because I paid Lewis a little extra for his great work. We probably spent closer to $8,000 on this trip in just a week, between Lewis, a camera person, hotel, flights, rent a car, food. We had to pay $1,000 for a custom Wi-Fi hotspot because the Wi-Fi there wasn't great. So the reason I bring all this up is, listen, we're never going to be millionaires, Lewis or I. Status Coup, we're not trying to be $1 billion company. We're just trying to build a small dollar machine of subscribers so that we never have to rely on advertising, so we never have to rely on the big banks, the fossil fuckers, big pharma, Silicon Valley, the military industrial complex, big real estate, any of the sugar daddies buying off the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. So we got 1,000 people watching now. My guess is most of you are not paid members. Now, if it's not within your budget, that's okay. We totally get that. If you do have $5 to $10 a month, you could become a Status Coup member for as low as a burnt, shitty cup of coffee at Starbucks. There you go, Michael. StatusCoup.com/join. I'll take off my glasses so you can see my fucking bags, because I've slept in the last 2 nights. I've slept 4 hours.
I can also say I was basically pulling 15-hour days with John every single day we were there. When I got back home on Saturday, I literally fell asleep on my couch at 6:15 p.m. And didn't wake up until about 9. Well, I moved to my bed and then didn't wake up until about 9 a.m. the next day.
Welcome to life as an independent, underpaid reporter. Please, if you can, this reporting does not come cheap. I'm already talking to Lewis about sending him back. And it's not just being on the ground. I mean, we got to pay people anyway. Colin, Zaina, everybody, Ron, Tina, we have a team here. So if it's within your realm of possibility, StatusCoup.com/join. As I could humbly say, there's a whole lot of people on YouTube and channels asking for money. Some of them are good, some of them are grifters, but very few of them are doing what we're doing. And it's not just in East Palestine. If you follow Status Coup for, holy shit, oh my God, I totally missed it. Colin, come on for a second. Do you know that 4 days ago was our 5-year anniversary?
Oh.
We've been so busy, we missed that we just turned 5. We debuted this channel February 23rd, 2018. So we'll have to do a delayed 5-year party with shots for everybody. But 5 years, Status Coup. Most businesses go under right away. So please, if you can, we got 91 new members. I'm pretty sure we could get to 100 while we're live. So please sign up. I'll give you shout outs. It's StatusCoup.com/join. StatusCoup.com/join. And by the way, as a member, you get to join us on our monthly members calls. So we do that through Zoom. I'm hoping to do it this week. It depends. I want Lewis on that call. So it depends on his availability. But we do a members call through Zoom. It's usually about an hour and a half, 2 hours. So we answer your questions, comments, concerns. If you got questions for Lewis, comments, just want to call him, handsome and great, that will be either this week or next week. We'll see. We also do behind the scenes videos for members. Lewis did a couple while he was on the road in East Palestine. And we have a Discord channel for members. Welcome, new member. Marty just signed up. All right, Marty. So that's 92 members since we have been covering this. So let's get to 100. Lewis, that was my sales pitch. What's yours before we get to other videos that we want to show you. And by the way, again, when there's a will, there's a way. It's not, trust me, CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, they have what's beyond quadruple. Whatever's past quadruple, they have beyond quadruple the resources that we do to show you that drone footage, to show you this other footage, to be doing these interviews. They're choosing not to do it. It's a choice not to do it.
It is. And I'll say, too, it's a choice for them to just parrot whatever press release gets repeated by, gets released by the state or whatnot. I'll give a couple examples of things that I went and uncovered while, mainstream media folks and even some local TV journalists and whatnot didn't have nothing to say about them. The first example I'll say was, I'll toot my own horn on the interview with the governor firsthand. I got a tip from a resident, again, similar to getting this drone footage that we just showed you, a resident that I've been talking to even before I got to East Palestine. We spent some time interviewing her and some of her neighbors beforehand, and she texted me saying, the governor is on my street right now. And then she called me. She's like, the governor's on the street right now. Get over here as soon as you can. No one's asking him a single question. So we happened to be only a couple blocks away. We drove right over there. Sure enough, the governor was right there. There were 4 or 5 journalists also there standing around with their cameramen and women standing there taking pictures and, letting the governor get his little photo op moment. Not a single one of them asked the man a single question. I went up and told him, hey, I've been talking to folks on this street the last several days. Last night, they told me they're having symptoms XYZ. What do you suggest that they should be doing? Thank you, Luann, for becoming a member. We appreciate that. What do you think that they should be doing? And the governor said, oh, well, they should go to the health clinic that we set up down the road. I'll get to the health clinic in just a second. But after that, I asked him, why did it take so long to get FEMA involved? He directly flat out lied to me. And fortunately, we had the receipts to prove it. And Jordan and Colin quickly pulled together the clips to put that out there. Not a single other journalist has asked that man a hard question since I was in town, at least. I haven't seen it.
Not a journalist approached him.
Not a journalist approached him, exactly.
What was he handing out to residents?
He was walking along this street. And again, on this street, the folks have the train tracks in their backyard. It's in their backyard or across the street, depending on which side of the street you live in. He was walking around talking to folks saying, sorry that this happened to you, but here's a cookbook and a cookie, his wife's cookbook. So sorry that this train exploded in your backyard and then we set it on fire, but here's a cookie. Sorry. Not joking. And that was also, again, the only reason we found that out, and no one else is talking about that. I think that's a slap in the face to these people, was because another resident texted me the picture and be like, look what he freaking gave me after showing up at the house. You can't believe it. Another new member right there, David Box.
All right.
There we go.
I believe we're at 95 new members with those 3 new YouTube members. So I'm pretty sure we can get a couple more, get to that magic 100.
And I'll give you another anecdote to help convince you if you're not convinced already. So I took the governor's first claim of, these people are having these symptoms. 2 of the people that I had talked with, both her and her son, ended up in the hospital needing nebulizer treatments because they were having such a difficult time breathing. Neither of them have had any breathing difficulties of any kind up until this point, okay? Then they end up in the hospital needing nebulizer treatments. They've got like rescue inhalers and whatnot now in case it flares up anymore while they're at home. That was just one of the symptoms. So they're telling these folks, go to the medical clinic that the state set up and opened today. So we went to the medical clinic that the state set up. And first off, outside of the medical clinic were several local media outlets reading almost word for word the press release that had been provided about the opening of the clinic, saying, now residents should go visit this clinic. It's open from this time to this time. The governor's office says it starts today, yada, yada, yada. What they aren't saying is when you pull up the list of provided services that are being offered at this clinic, the clinic, as I mentioned in the beginning of this broadcast, is notably not offering any sort of actual treatments. They're not offering any sort of prescription drugs. They are not providing any blood or urine testing of any kind to see maybe what chemicals you've been inhaling or touching or dealing with. there's no actual medical treatment of any kind. All they're offering is, hey, come on in, you can talk to somebody, and we'll maybe refer you to your doctor. Nobody else is talking about this sort of thing. We're there actually asking the hard questions. And I will say too, we're there actually talking to folks and letting them say their piece, talking to them not for 3 minutes to cut 15 seconds out of the conversation and that's it. We'll do a 40-minute sit down, as you've seen with a lot of these people, a half an hour sit down with a lot of these people, and we'll air the whole conversation in full. And people respect that. People were reaching out to me saying, hey, I want it. And there's people who we didn't get to on this trip who are already going to be able to line up for future trips or remotely who want to do a longer conversation like this because they think that that's a better way to get their message out there to folks. You're not going to get that with the mainstream outlets at all.
Shout out, starting to get signed up. So thank you so much to Beth, just signed up through our website, Chris through our website, Omega through our website, Michael through our website. So 98, holy cow, 98 new members. Don't think we got to stop at 100 because it's going to cost a lot of money to keep going back. So we need more than 2 more, but this is a great accomplishment. And I'll also say, I mean, just keeping it real, you know, I think that actually, let me just read what I wrote this morning because I wrote it on Twitter. What's going on right now reminds me a lot of what went on with the Flint water crisis. And I keep bringing that up. Obviously, this is different. But, oh, look at that. Welcome, Krusty just signed up. 99. Holy cow. How these atrocities get normalized, how, whether it's water in Flint or air, water and soil in East Palestine, there's so many places. East Chicago, Indiana, I covered a few years ago, the air, water, and soil. North Carolina and so many parts of the country, the PFAS, which are the cancer-causing forever chemicals they call it, that are all over this country, and the media barely covers it. You talk about the uranium mining and the contamination that has caused all over this country. I could go on forever. But why it's so important is, I'll just read the thread. FYI, this is the time, after 2 weeks of coverage, when mainstream media moves off a catastrophic story like East Palestine, Ohio, when the cameras leave and coverage shifts from hourly, daily update to occasional updates to abandon the story altogether. This is what happened with the Flint water crisis. Mainstream media outlets typically only care when they deem an urgency to a catastrophe, when it's new and the flames or poison water or adverse health symptoms seem most dire. In my experience, once they predictably stop covering and caring, that's when the real cover-up begins because the cameras are gone. The cover-up is a mixture of the government, media, and in the case of East Palestine, corporate, Norfolk Southern, pushing forward flawed testing in order to provide the all clear sign and sweep things under the rug. The void of media coverage, particularly on the ground, provides a false and dangerous sense of security and closure to a story, giving people and news consumers the false impression that the story is resolved or things have gotten better in East Palestine or Flint. Meanwhile, residents continue to get sicker, medical bills pile up, they continually get spurned by national media and even local news outlets who stop covering the story or water down their coverage significantly when they do cover it, typically towing the EPA, state environmental department, or corporate line that everything is, quote, improving and just dandy. This is exactly what has happened in Flint. Making matters worse and easier for the mainstream media to move on is the presidential campaign season heating up, with national outlets already fixating and speculating on the GOP 2024 horse race and whether Biden will or won't run, and if anyone will primary him. In 2016, coverage of the Flint water crisis fell out of the news as media pivoted back to covering Trump's tweets 24/7, at a great disservice to Flint residents who were left to fend for themselves, as then Governor Rick Snyder's administration, with the help of a lazy media, executed a massive cover-up. And by the way, that's how I first found out about Flint, because residents were messaging me, telling me the media stopped covering it, but it's still a disaster. And I pushed at the time, the Young Turks to send me there. All the cameras were gone at that point. The void left by mainstream media abandoning East Palestine, Ohio, has to be filled by independent media. As someone who has frustratingly tried to keep the ongoing Flint water crisis in the news for 6 years, this will not be easy, but Status Coup will continue to cover and investigate this story when it's no longer trending, and it won't be trending, and when it is no longer in the news, and it's already much reduced in terms of news coverage. Mm-hmm. We will continue speaking with residents on and off camera to find out what's happening on the ground and distinguish between fact and fiction. And, this is not about me, and it's not about Lewis. It's not even about Status Coup. It's about, to me, whether it's Flint, East Palestine, I mean, what kind of country? Do we even live in a country, or do we live in a multi-trillion-dollar corporate conglomerate? Because I got news for you. Whether it's intentional or an accident, in this case, it doesn't really matter. I think Norfolk Southern's greed is intentional. Mm-hmm. The U.S. government looking the other way because they are bought off by companies like Norfolk Southern, politicians, is intentional. The accident might have been unintentional, but the recklessness, the greed caused it. Whatever the case may be, do you want to live in a country that, through no fault of your own, if you're poisoned by corporate America, the government, that you're just left to fend for yourself, that they cover it up and just leave you to slowly die? The reason I keep bringing up Flint is not to make the two places compete, but because Flint is the blueprint for how to get away with murder. April is 9 years, and I will most likely be in Flint in April. April is 9 years since they poisoned Flint's water. I don't give a shit what the EPA says. I don't care what the Michigan governor says. I care what the residents say, and I have been to Flint enough to know that water is not safe. Every time I go back to Flint, more people are dying. It is one of America's worst cancer clusters. And you get media headlines. It might be because of the water. What do you think it is? Because of Kool-Aid? Yeah, Flint is, what do you know? It's turned into a cancer cluster. It might have something to do with the water. Gee whiz. I literally have fought tooth and nail to get mainstream media outlets to pick up my investigative reporting on Flint. Lewis, you will probably have the same struggle. Mm-hmm. I'm writing a book on Flint. I got offered from a small publisher. Bigger publishers have told me, quote, they do not believe it is commercially viable, meaning they don't believe enough people care. Well, why don't people care? Because the media has prematurely and falsely declared it solved. Well, there's very little difference between that and this. I don't know, Lewis. I always tell you, Lewis, I want to see that passion out of your mouth. Who am I? Who are we to believe? Residents who don't have any real incentive to make this up, or the EPA? I don't believe what the EPA is saying. Whether their testing is flawed, whether their measurements are not high enough or low enough, specifically low enough. I think in this case, I trust what the residents are saying. Mm-hmm. And just look at, let's play that video that Melissa sent. This is from a creek. This was a Flint resident with East Palestine residents. They're at a creek, 3 miles away from the explosion zone?
Yeah, roughly. This is actually almost to who we played earlier, Wayne and Brandy. This is between East Palestine and their home. So on the road between East Palestine and Negley.
Yes. Let's take a look. You might not see it. You might not see it in this clip, but they told us they literally were feeling drunk, inhaling whatever the fuck is in the air by this creek that they had to leave. They were feeling so loopy and almost like when you drink too much without the benefit of alcohol. Let's play this.
Shine. Yeah, just shine a light so we can see.
Anything that's close enough to like an LED, like a bright LED, when you shine it on there, it should.
So Eddie's coined this the gnarly pool. It's right down from where we collected the other samples, the water samples. So we're gonna collect soil down here.
Okay, he's gonna just.
All right, you're gonna disturb it with the light on it.
Come right over here.
Okay, hold on. Let me get in position. Ready. Oh shit!
That's worse than up there.
I wasn't kidding.
And that's supposed to be through the filters and the multiple stages. Oh, and look at...
If you keep in mind, this water has been filtered from up in East Palestine down to where we just were.
Multiple times.
And then this is another barrier, and then there's one down there.
Oh, and that, you can smell it through your mask. Again.
It's still bubbling
I
up.
can taste it.
Oh.
The gnarly pool.
No, this has definitely earned its name, the gnarly pool.
I wasn't kidding.
You guys, be careful. It's neurological.
Right. Okay, let's get... All right, let's get these soil samples. What do you think?
You guys don't want a water sample that's rainbow?
No, we're going to get water and soil with it.
Oh, down here.
Okay, well, I'm starting to get a headache, so we're going to go fast.
Before we get into some of that too, our new member Luann, I just noticed that I hope Lewis can continue on the East Palestine story. As we said, already planning the return trip back. And thanks to folks like you for becoming a member, it makes it a little bit easier for us to be able to make that happen. But man,
Yeah, just to let you know, I mean, even on the cheap, and staying at like, average hotels, sometimes motels if we have to. Generally between a cameraman and a reporter, it could cost for a week about $5,000, $6,000. Flights, hotel, rent a car. Obviously, we pay Lewis, the cameraman, per day. So it's not cheap. That's why a lot of corporate outlets, even independent outlets, it's much cheaper to just throw a schmuck in the left side of the screen, a schmuck on the right side of the screen, have a food fight for 5 minutes, and then throw to the Viagra commercial, which is basically cable news. Independent media, it's a lot cheaper to just kind of do hot takes and reactionary stuff and less on the ground. This shit is... It is a lot of, I mean, even for me, I wasn't on the ground this time. I was working like 15 hours, going through Lewis's footage, finding sound bites, posting it on social media.
getting on the phone, connecting me with more folks as well.
Yeah,
and,
reaching out to people for Lewis to interview. So it's a lot of work, but it's worth it because these people need their stories told. I mean, when I'm on the phone with people and they're like, I just spent 2 hours on the phone calling City Hall, who sent me to this EPA number, who sent me to this number, who sent me to this number. Before you know it, it was 2 hours and I didn't talk to anyone. When you're talking to people who are describing the main City Hall building smelling like gas, when you're talking to people who are describing that cars are swerving in town, because I assume people are not feeling well, this is like Twilight Zone shit because you're not getting this from the mainstream media. And I think another aspect that Lewis and I have talked about, it's a little trickier, but you just have to dig and find people. There's going to be people. This does affect Western Pennsylvania. This might affect, we don't know. These creeks that we're showing you, most of them are not directly the water source for East Palestine, but they do flow into broader water sources that go all the way to the Ohio River. The Ohio River serves a shit ton of people their water. So this is dangerous stuff. When I see Twitter experts, oh, that's just biofilm. Oh, yeah? The plumes and bubbles coming up in all the waterways are biofilm?
Right.
Please.
It's not biofilm. And to get back to that video as well from Melissa, and I believe she was out there with Ashley, who we've had on as well, that is below at least 3, maybe 4 of some of these things that we've been posting on Twitter as well as on the YouTube that are basically like aerators and filters. So what they'll do is they'll make like a small dam almost out of like sandbags or things that look like sandbags. They're kind of they make it so the water can't go up and over necessarily unless it rains, in which case it does go up and over, which we saw. But the water will get pumped from the one side of the dam and then go up into this machine. There are some like buckets, not buckets, like 50-gallon drums that the water will also kind of go through and then will be spit out up into the air, shooting the water up into the air. And in the experts that we were talking to, including Bob Bocock, the water will be spat out into the air and the vinyl chloride or other chemicals will be up in the air to dissipate while the water below is supposed to just continue going downstream. It's clearly not working very well because, again, that spot that was pointed out right there by Melissa is below, like I said, 4, maybe 5 of these filter systems. And then even further downstream than that was Wayne and Brandy's house that we showed earlier. Not Wayne and Brandy's house, but where Brandy lives further down the stream. And this is all in Leslie Run, which is fed by Sulphur Run, which is right next to where the derailment was. Sulphur Run essentially is right at ground zero. Feeds Leslie Run, Beaver Creek, Ohio River. So,
and also let's be clear here, and thank you, new YouTube member Blank You Too. So a couple others. We'll go through all the shout outs at the end. Also, we got, I don't want to miss people who are signing up through the website. Awesome. Karen, Ben, Beth, Chris, Omega, and Michael. So that's 6 new members to our website in addition to the YouTube members. You know, when the mainstream media stops covering this, that takes the pressure off for some basic questions. Number one, why is Norfolk Southern still allowed to operate trains through this town? Does anyone, we know the answer because we live in the United Corporations of America, but why in the hell is Norfolk Southern allowed to be currently making money? Yes, you could make the argument, well, Jordan, America runs on trains and products that are moving are needed. Yeah, well, divert and take another fucking way. No train should be moving through East Palestine right now. We don't know what the hell is under those tracks. They dug over contaminated soil, which probably went into the groundwater. So Norfolk Southern should not be operating right now. Number two, if the media is going to sugarcoat it or not tell it at all, and from what we were told, the politicians are meeting about business and not resident symptoms. Well, we need to start now. And this, I think, was the mistake, not on the part of the residents in Flint, but just the wider public. We need to start talking right now about Biden should do an executive order for Medicare for all, for all of us. But putting that aside, for these people in East Palestine, and not like within a mile radius, I think it needs to be within at least 20 to 30 miles. Because if they're, why do you think that they are minimizing the symptoms or just ignoring the symptoms? Because they don't want to pay, because this is going to require long-term treatment. Frankly, as residents we have spoken to already are finding out, regular internists, regular doctors are not in most cases capable of treating these kind of symptoms. They don't even have the blood work to be looking for these chemicals. As Melissa Mays and other Flint residents could tell you, they required environmental doctors, with most insurance plans do not cover. So this is going to require expanded healthcare, not temporarily, permanently. I don't know why Norfolk Southern is allowed to operate right now in that town. And frankly, we do live in the United Corporations of America, so people have to rely on GoFundMe. People are asking me, Jordan, can you post like the most reliable? I don't want to post ones that I don't know, because I don't want to post the wrong thing. I know a couple residents that I sympathize with, and I would post their GoFundMes, but I don't know which resident. I don't even, some people might be posting they live in East Palestine, and they don't. Right. I've seen plenty of scammers in the case of Flint when that was going on and elsewhere. I'm seeing foundations are putting out that they should be getting the money. Well, I know a lot of foundations that they got a lot of money in Flint, and for some strange reason, that money went to real estate developers and banks and law firms. So, I mean, I could go on and on, but at the end of the day, I think we obviously, we're going to cover other things too, but we're going to cover this because I don't know of a bigger story in this country right now than a petrochemical mushroom cloud that exploded a bomb over definitely multiple states, that has gone to multiple states through weather and wind. And we don't know all the chemicals. We know they're not testing for all the chemicals. So this is the problem with multi-billion-dollar corporate conglomerates buying up our media. You get things covered up rather than covered. And Lewis, I want to show one more clip. We had so much today, and keep signing up as members. We really appreciate it. I saw earlier on Facebook a clip right next to the train track of somebody's backyard that's basically underwater because water is basically being pumped out. into their backyard, and they're describing that it's basically boiling. And these are, frankly, poor people. Let's show that clip.
So the railroad wants to tell us that it's safe to be at our home, that there's nothing wrong, but we have a river in our backyard now, and it's bubbling. You can see that our entire yard is now underwater because these people down here, 3 houses over in the old Howard's parking lot, has decided to let water out. And it has flooded everybody's backyard back here. And whatever is in it is now bubbling in our backyard. So please tell me how it's safe to be here.
Person who sent me that was Stella, who is you interviewed her.
Yeah.
With Darren. She has 10 grandkids. I think she's lived there in East Palestine for decades. And she said to me, several kids live there.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have any money to move. The water is from the runoff. There's soil piled up with a tarp over it.
Yeah, I mean, it's as far as like the area around the cleanup site goes, and even with like the little things around town, right? Even like the little things with the water pumping, aerating stations that I'm talking about. Initially, when they set those things up, there were not these like extra kind of barriers around those machines, and apparently at points we were told that they had been leaking diesel fuel, and then they put these little extra barriers up so that the diesel fuel wouldn't, on top of everything else, run into the creek. In this instance, they're not thinking that all of this water is now going to be dumping into these folks' backyard. We're getting reports of, the trucks that are being loaded up. This was mentioned in the full interview with Wayne and Brandy, which you should check out if you haven't after the stream is over. That they're loading up debris from the cleanup site and driving away without covered vehicles. There's dust and everything going all over the place in the process. And some of these homes, like this person's right here, are not far away at all. They're feet away from the 100 feet or so. I didn't know exactly where that house was, but it's close to the actual derailment site. It's thing after thing after thing that it's just no one taking the time to make sure that this is being done the correct way.
Lewis, you know the answer, right?
I don't know.
But I have to say we're capitalist. And that's just the way it is. But I have to say we're capitalist.
Yep.
Somebody's got to call the police on Norfolk Southern, the politicians. But the problem is the police are there to protect Norfolk Southern and the politicians. Mm-hmm. And it's just crazy. It's crazy. And I got to say, the cognitive dissonance baked into our media system, where it is so consolidated with the
looks like we might be losing Jordan a little bit right there.
You got me?
Oh, I can hear you now. We're losing Jordan again right here a little bit. But no, I mean, we'll see if he pops back here in a second. But just to continue to hammer the point home, the folks in this town clearly deserve way the heck better than what they're getting right now. It looks like we've got you back now, Jordan, as well.
I was basically saying the cognitive dissonance of the elites in media. CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, ABC, CBS, NBC, PBS. I could go on. They all basically live in New York and DC. They all go to the same cocktail parties. They all are climbing the same corporate ladder, and their air is pretty much clean. Mm-hmm. And their water, for the most part, is pretty much clean. And they cover these stories, like I wrote on Twitter, when it is acute and when the flames are there, as they say in media, when it bleeds, it leads. And then they get tired of it because they're so disconnected from what everyday people are going through. But when I'm talking to people on the phone, and I know when you're talking to people and they're crying and they don't know where to send their kids and they're desperate, like, what do I do? Do I bring my kid back to the house? I can't afford to stay in this hotel, or I don't want to pull them out of school. These are real choices people in this community are making now. And then you have the predictable and inevitable friction that comes from people in the community. Some people are saying, let's move on and get back to normal. And other people are saying, no, we need to get people out of here. And everybody's human, and people fight, and residents fight, and activists, don't agree on all things. And some people think certain residents are trying to get attention, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, we're talking about life or death here, because cancer will kill you in most cases. And these are not chemicals meant for consumption. And we're only talking about humans right now. We could do, maybe we will, with experts. We could do a whole show just on the animals. Mm-hmm. A Washington Post story said, what was it, 43,000 animals have died? And by the way, some of these fish that make it are going to be on people's plates to eat. So this is just a really, I've seen people talking about Agent Orange. I mean, it could be. It could be as bad as that. Some people said, Jordan, don't be dramatic comparing it to Chernobyl. Did you see the drone footage? What would you compare this to? There's going to be, I don't trust the government to do the investigations, but there needs to be serious inquiry into who decided this control burn, because that was not controlled. Who decided not to evacuate, or at least try to evacuate, not just people right next to the train, everybody in this town should have been attempted to evacuate. Who's deciding on the financial? I don't want to get into Russia or Ukraine, but how is it that like every single day we're sending $2 billion to Ukraine? We're sending more to Ukraine, whether you agree with that or not. If you have the money to go to Ukraine, why don't you have the money in an instant to send in so people don't have to rely on GoFundMe? And the government should be relocating people. And frankly, the government should be paying people's salaries who work in this town so they don't have to go to work in gas station offices or hospitals. Or, it's just so insane. And why this should matter to everybody watching. Because right now it might not be your neck of the woods. But trust me, people who were looking at Flint thought it wasn't going to be them until their water was contaminated or their air, something happened. And I'm sure the people of East Palestine never thought this. And by the way, that train was on fire from it went through Salem
over
and
20
many
miles.
other
Yeah, it was over 20 miles before East Palestine. The train was on fire, and there's footage of it in as far out as Salem. So yeah. Your small town, probably if you live in a small town in the U.S. somewhere, you probably got railroad tracks that run through your town. This could happen in so many places. So many places.
You want to know something? We might have more conservative people watching because we got a lot of new subscribers who, I don't really care if you're progressive, if you're Republican, if you're in the middle, if you don't really have a label. I hope we could start talking about nationalizing some of these industries, because when you have human beings whose charter for their company, whose mission statement is to make shareholders profit, not just Norfolk Southern, this is corporate America, period. When you have corporations that their DNA is to focus on the profit rather than the safety, and their decision can basically cancer a whole community, you need to take that out of the hands of corporate America. I don't know if I trust the government necessarily because they're all a bunch of sociopaths. But what you see is what you get. And let's also say, and Biden, people are comparing him to some wartime presidents. Well, remember, Joe Biden is the one who blocked railroad workers from going on strike. I interviewed a lot of those railroad workers. I spoke with them. One of the major reasons they wanted to go on strike, one of the major points they wanted to make was how understaffed they are, how companies like Norfolk Southern have laid off or purged 30% of the workforce over the last decade. So you had, what was it, 2 workers for 150 train cars? One of the things they wanted to strike, Lewis, was how out of date these trains are.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking Civil War era braking technology, and that's fine. Again, 2 people on a train. For this one, actually did have a trainee on the train as well. There were 3 individuals on this train, but it doesn't help when the trains are as long as they are. That if you look back while you're going around a corner, that you can't see the whole train. The trains used to be much shorter. They're now much longer. There's been some great coverage on precision scheduled railroading and why all of this and is making these situations more dangerous, trying to run longer trains with more on them, with less people on board, just to try to make a little bit more money in all of these situations.
So, I mean, I could stay on my high horse, but before we leave, there's a lot of it's really amazing how much you guys did in a week. We have quite a bit of unaired footage that we're going to air over the next few days. I'm going to ask every single person watching right now, even if you watch that 6-minute drone footage, we're going to air that separately. Just give it a click, even if you saw it, because the more people that click on it, the more it will get recommended on YouTube. We want a bad pun, but we want that to blow up. Pun intended. To get this to more people, because I haven't seen that kind of footage of what happened. I actually think that 6 minutes could just be a mini documentary called Capitalism, a Love Story too. Because that is capitalism, that 6-minute montage. So we're going to probably either tonight or tomorrow air that drone footage, maybe try to get mainstream media to pick it up. Tomorrow probably we'll air, Lewis did an interview with Aaron Brockovich's partner, who's a water treatment expert. He was worked at water plants for 30 years. He said he actually thinks what the EPA is doing might be making it worse in terms of how they're testing and like how they're aerating things. So we'll post that tomorrow. There's other interviews Lewis did. And we're going to continue to dig. I mean, we're going to interview tomorrow a resident who was invited to this invite-only meeting where it seems that the main concern was getting back to business. So yeah, I mean, when there's actually a will on behalf of the media, you can keep a story that, frankly, in my view, should be on the front page of all newspapers right now. Should be leading broadcast news. The evening, I didn't watch the Sunday shows yesterday, but I'm pretty sure most of them did not cover this as much as they should have, if they covered it at all. Because at the end of the day, the presidential election doesn't matter if you can't rely on your president or your senators or your congresspeople to protect you, or at least get you the hell out of harm's way after you've been victimized. And I just feel terrible for these folks there. I feel terrible for folks in the surrounding area because you interviewed people 15 miles away that are having symptoms, and their media is barely covering it. And their health departments aren't giving them any guidance either.
Yeah, no, I mean, this, you said it well right there. I mean, these folks definitely deserve a lot better than they're getting. There are purposefully, tests not being done that need to be done. This absolutely should be front page news everywhere. This could happen in like I said before, this could happen in your small town that has railroad tracks running through it. Since this has happened, there have been exactly 0 regulation changes so far. So, what are we going to expect this to just magically not happen again? Are we going to expect the railroads to police themselves and to start adding extra safety measures and whatnot? I can tell you that that's not going to happen. So this needs until Norfolk Southern is fully held accountable for all of this and makes this right for the citizens there, which they're not even close to being on track to doing so. This needs to be front page news everywhere to make it right for these folks. And not only that, but prevent it from happening in insert your small town here. I mean, yeah.
And Louis DeAngelis is so charismatic, I'm told. By the way, I'm going to say it one more time. When the cameras leave, that's when the real cover-up begins. When the cameras leave, that is when the real cover-up begins. So we might not be on the ground this minute. We will be going back shortly, but we're going to stay on it every day. And we're going to try to update you as much as we can, chase down as many leads as we can. We do not have the team and the resources of a corporate outlet, but we're going to try to do as much as we can. But I ask you, for those who signed up today, thank you so much. For those that haven't signed up, if you'll consider signing up for $5 to $10 a day, it really makes a big difference. And Khalid, could you tell people who signed up how they can join our members only Discord channel?
Yeah. So once you become a member, make sure you bookmark the member site, which is StatusCoupMember.com, or you can just type in StatusCoup.com/join and it'll redirect you there. But you just go to member benefit, which is under the member section on that website. You just hover that, and there's a button there, a big old Discord logo, and you click that, and it'll connect you to the member Discord, as well as there's a couple other random member things sitting there for you, as well as that's where member posts will be, like member videos and the recordings from the Zoom calls, etc.
StatusCoupMember.com. Click on member content. Click on Discord. After this live stream, after my wife yells at me because I've been on way too long and I'm supposed to be feeding the baby right now, I'll probably get in the Discord and welcome new members. Let's do some super chats. Thank you to everybody who's been signing up. Louis, if you need to go, that's cool. Or stick
I'll
around.
hang out for a second. That's fine.
Cool. Double K, 1999. Thank you, Double K. Double K, another 1999. Thank you. Bodie, $5. Thanks, Bodie. Christina, $4.99. Status Coup and The Lever are the only two outlets telling the actual truth on East Palestine. Absolutely. They have done good work as well. Maria, $5. Super sticker. Thank you, Maria. Marty Strong. Appreciate it. New
Thanks,
YouTube member. Appreciate it. Luann, new YouTube member. Thank you, Luann. Chris Garrett, OG, $10. Happy Status Coup 5-year anniversary. Doing great work on the ground reporting. That's how you know you have no staff, when nobody remembers that it's your 5-year anniversary. We'll have to do a whole thing for that once things settle down. Thank you, Chris. Nathan, $5. Glad to see 5 years. So here's $1 a year. It's the least I could do. Thank you, Nathan. David Box, YouTube member. Thank you, David. Thank you for coming outside the box and joining us. Krusty B, new YouTube member. Love it, Krusty. Better than Cranky. Happy Days became a new YouTube member. Thank you. Das Boats Flies Across the Pond, 249 euros. Status Coup doing actual journalism. Lewis has been doing God's work. Das Boats Flies, another 249, and they have the most handsome reporters. Who are you talking about, him or me? Probably him. Omega just became a YouTube member. Thank you so much, Omega. Tony Dallas, $5. Hey, guys, great work on the story. With Jordan giving a mad DILF energy and Lewis looking like a snack, it's hard to concentrate. Meow. I'm going to tell my wife I was called a DILF. I like that. Thank you, Tony. I'll take kind words wherever I can get it. Jordan's shirt became a YouTube member. Is that? Thank you. Observer, $2. The tanker cars were mislabeled as non-toxic. Correct, because we live in the United Corporations of America, and the regulations allowed them to lie about what was on that train. Proxia, $10 super sticker. Thank you, Proxia. Observer, $2. Should be a felony to mislabel dangerous cargo. Well, Observer, I could tell you with 99.9% certainty, I'm still waiting for the criminal bankers who defrauded the United States and the global world to go to jail for 2008 and 2009. I'm still waiting for the pharmaceutical executives that have poisoned West Virginia and elsewhere with opioids, for all of them to go to jail. I'm still waiting for fossil fuckers who have poisoned waterways all over the country, fossil fuel executives to go to jail. I'm waiting. and I'm pretty sure we'll be waiting for a long time for Norfolk Southern's executives to go to jail. Eventually, they'll have a big-ass settlement. Probably will get hit with maybe a couple hundred million, maybe a couple hundred millions for a settlement, but nobody's going to jail. And they'll keep their yachts and their mansions because that's the kind of country we live in. CC 499, help them protest. Thank you so much. Sassy but classy 1999, love this channel. Thank you. Did I miss anything? Mary Ellen, $100 donation on statuscoup.com/donate. That's right. You could also donate for this reporting. So membership is a monthly subscriber fee, which we really need. But we have a lot of people that donate as well. So statuscoup.com/donate.
And you can also, at statuscoup.com/donate, you can set up recurring amounts. So if you can't do $5 a month and want to do less than that, you can enter any custom amount, and vice versa. If you want to do a little bit more as a recurring payment than the $20 membership level, you can do any amount from $1 a month or $1 every. You could do $5 every 3 months. It's all custom stuff in there.
And while we're here, since we do have some new viewers, we also have some swag. So if you want to be rocking the coup, you could go to the Status Coup store, get your United Corporations of America shirt, rock that as the weather gets nicer. You could get your Fossil Fuckers shirt. My dad does not like when I wore that to his home. He doesn't like the language, but the Fossil Fuckers shirt, United Corporations of America. There's Colin, I'm forgetting. There's a lot of other swag. Where can they get it?
Just go to statuscoup.com/store. Did you show all the shirts? You got the quote one and night quote. Yeah. Statuscoup.com/store. You got those shirts, and we have some. I think there's still some older design shirts on there as well. You guys can get, and
we have stuff in pink. Yeah. We have stuff in white and black. Whatever you want. All right, we got to go. Lewis, tell people tomorrow we're gonna have Jamie on.
Yep. Yeah, and Jamie is who we referenced at the beginning of the show today. She's going to have more to share with us on the meeting that happened today with Senator Brown from Ohio, as well as the mayor, the fire chief, and business owners in town. That should be certainly interesting. The main concern at that meeting seemed more so to be getting folks back into town and spending money and getting business back to normal, rather than the health and safety of community members. Jamie was seemingly one of the only folks in the room who seemed to be concerned about that. And this was an invite-only meeting, not necessarily the way you'd want things to be done when there's a crisis going on and your officials are all in town. Transparency seems to be what the right choice would be. That has not been the case with a lot of the stuff going on here, but we'll have more from Jamie on that tomorrow.
And a little breaking news. Contaminated waste from the East Palestine derailment is coming to Indiana, if you're in Indiana, according to the EPA. So over the weekend, they were bringing some of this waste, i.e. petrochemicals, to Michigan and Texas. I'm sure the residents didn't get a vote, but there was an outcry, and the EPA, which probably knew about it, but after there was an outcry, the EPA decided to stop them midway. But now it seems like they're spreading the poison around to Indiana. So if you live in Indiana, the EPA is saying now that part of this contaminated waste is coming to Indiana, which I will say, having covered landfills before, nuclear waste sites, you go ask people in St. Louis and other communities where they have nuclear waste supposedly buried and sealed. A lot of times the seals, they're supposed to seal it off, aren't completely sealed. And you end up having kids having to play in masks outside. So I understand that it's a hot potato, and obviously the folks want this moved, but I'm not necessarily sure if I was living in Indiana, I would want it moved to me. So we'll give you more information tomorrow on that. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you to all the new members. Thank you, Lewis, who jumped in. We've had 107 new members sign up in a week, which is amazing. Let's keep this up. Believe it or not, you might not think like signing up at $5 makes a difference. It makes a difference. Every membership that is reliable monthly revenue for us. And it's important because we can't rely on YouTube. There are periods like right now where we'll have a huge surge and numbers are up and super chats are coming. And then there's periods where YouTube decides to hide us again and our views are way back down. So having the revenue from membership helps us know how much money we're going to have coming in so we could budget for East Palestine, Flint, and many other places. So thank you. Thank you, Lewis. Everybody follow Lewis on Twitter, even though his Twitter name sounds like a 13-year-old on AOL. What's your Twitter name?
At LewisD217. I'm having a hard time letting go of it. I don't know. At LewisD217. Yep.
Status Lou. It should be Status Lou. I think you passed 1,000 on Twitter, so that's awesome. By the way, we just passed 134,000 YouTube subscribers. Nice. A week or so ago, we were at 128,000. So it tells you when YouTube decides to lift the noose around us, and people could actually see this channel, and YouTube is recommending our work, a lot of people like it. So thank you to the new subscribers. Keep watching, and we'll see you guys back here tomorrow.